Are you saying that the United States doesn't exist, therefore there should be no borders?
I mean, of course.
Time for the latest installment of Change My Mind. Real conversations on controversial topics, allowing people to rationalize their own positions. This one is kind of a sequel to Build the Wall.
How do I report this now?
We got a lot of drive-by yelling.
We have a little husky. Wall would help it.
As you well know, the wall itself and immigration at large is a hot topic these days.
All Americans are hurt by uncontrolled illegal migration.
We don't need a wall.
The president wants to cut a deal.
A wall is an immorality. It's not who we are as a nation.
Build that wall. Build that wall. Build that wall. Build that wall.
But what do real people think about President Trump's proposed border wall and about immigration at large? More importantly, what do they know? What do you think? We want to hear from you in the comments below. Please enjoy. Hello, how are you? Beg your pardon?
You're from Canada, right?
I was raised in Canada, yes.
Yeah.
What's your name?
Liv.
Liv?
Liv Richard.
Nice to meet you, Liv.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, sorry. Here, we'll make, okay.
I'll try and make this brief, but I have a couple questions about your experience personally with the immigration system.
Sure, but first off, let me kind of preface this, what we're doing here. You know,
Yeah,
I don't
we're
know how
debating
familiar you are
the
with it. Well, not debating, actually.
Okay.
The point here, and I think this doesn't really happen on college campus a whole lot, is about rationalizing one's position.
Yeah, of course.
So I do support not only a wall, but comprehensive immigration, not only reform, but enforcing the laws that we currently have on the books.
course.
I think that we need secure borders, and I think that that's a strong component to national security. So what part of that do you disagree with? You're welcome to change my mind.
I agree that we do need a strong national security because it is important to the American people born here, people that immigrate here legally. I think the problem is our execution with it.
Okay.
I understand, like living in Texas most of my life, I totally understand what you mean by we need a physical barrier between them and us. And that's understandable. Like, you don't know who's over there. You need to assert that America is number one, you serve your country, this is, like, we need to protect our own. But I
don't say anything about America number one. I just think that a nation needs borders.
Security. Yeah, I totally
we need to know who's here.
with that.
Do
But
you disagree with that?
no, I agree with that.
Okay, good.
I understand where you're coming from that.
Yeah.
I just think the idea that a wall will protect that is not exactly the most meaningful way of doing it. I think it's more of a band-aid to a much greater problem that's our immigration system currently.
Okay.
Because it's extremely difficult to immigrate if you come from Mexico, and it's extremely difficult to get refugee status and seek asylum in the U.S. So even though, because the big problem is our southern border. Our southern border is the problem. No one's like, oh no, we need a Canadian border. Like, no one's afraid of.
You know why that is?
Get out of here, because they don't have as much high crime rate. It's not as violent.
No, we don't have a problem of illegal immigration from Canada here. Yeah.
But I think a big part, you mentioned some numbers earlier, I couldn't really hear because I was standing behind.
Sure.
About how people get here. Most people do not cross the border physically on foot. Like, that's not the main way. Most people overstay their visas, they come here on planes.
That's not true.
Okay, what were your numbers to support that?
About 42% are overstayed visas.
Okay. And the other?
The rest, cross the border illegally.
Okay.
Enter illegally.
What are the
not on the
demographics
books.
of those people? Do you know?
I couldn't care less.
Okay.
Why does that matter?
I think the biggest part for that would be the refugee status, people that are seeking asylum,
Okay.
and that they are just so desperate that they don't have a choice.
Okay. Are you aware what classifies
You
refugee
have to be
status?
fearing for your life, correct?
No.
Okay, what is it?
You have to be demonstrably oppressed, typically under a regime who are systematically oppressing you for your faith or race or creed. And if you look at international law, it's the nearest nation that could possibly accept refugees is required to under those laws, none of which would apply, of course, to Mexico
to, like,
or
cartel victims and stuff like that. Okay.
No.
I see what you're saying.
No.
Yeah.
No, not like cartel victims, no.
Yeah, so they would not apply for visa for that.
No, they wouldn't qualify as a
yeah,
refugee
yeah.
status, and certainly not a caravan coming from Honduras because they live in a bad country.
Yeah. So what do we currently have in place? As far as I understand, we have a fence. It is a small fence. It does not cover the entire border.
Yeah, there's about 700-800 miles of border that are completely unprotected.
And why are they unprotected?
Due to inactive politicians for a long time who haven't enforced the laws that we have in the book and haven't erected the fence wall, whatever you want to call it,
Okay.
as it was supposed to be.
Do you...
And by the way, I want to make sure that you really understand, it's not just about the wall. I've supported all the other comprehensive forms of immigration. But let me ask you this. Do we both agree that we need to enforce...
stronger...
No, we need to know who's here legally.
Yeah.
Okay. And do we both agree that we need strong borders? as
Yes.
a country. Okay.
Just execution, I think, is where we differ.
Okay, execution is where we differ. Because you were saying asylum seekers and you were kind of talking about, which, you know, these people
Who
are
we
not...
should let in, and like,
Right.
I definitely agree that they should come through legally, but when push comes to pull, I can totally understand where they're coming from. I
Yeah.
just don't think that those are the people that will be kept out from the wall. Or those will be the people that are kept out from the wall. The people that we're trying to keep out won't be.
So you mean you think that
I don't think
refugees, asylum seekers will be kept out? Is that
I
what you're
think
saying?
those would be the more likely just because they're so weak. The people that are most strong would be the
So
cartels.
would you mean like Christians in Syria? Is that what you'd be talking about?
More or less. I mean, not specifically them because there's no wall to protect or against them.
Right. Well, that's a big problem. You know, we're a big country and we're not necessarily just protected by the ocean and a very small border.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about refugees, that would qualify, like a Christian in Syria.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely, of course.
Yeah, and I would agree.
Or-
Christians in Syria.
Yeah, they need help.
They need help. Right. Yeah. No one's helped them, by the way.
Yeah, I'm aware.
Yeah. Well, how are you aware?
Because I do keep up a little bit with that. I mostly keep up with, like, as a Jew, keep up with the Jewish situation in the Middle East and their immigration problems.
Sure.
Yeah,
So you're aware that walls work.
more or less, yes. And that
Israel erected a
yeah.
wall and eliminated 99% of illegal immigration. But I was curious, how are you aware that, and this isn't a gotcha, that specifically Christian refugees haven't been taken in? Because plenty of refugees have been taken in.
Yeah, they're the most targeted minority in Syria right now, are they not?
Yes.
Yeah, because it's a Muslim majority country.
Right.
Yeah.
But less than 1% of the refugees accepted were Christian.
Really? Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah. They would be asylum seekers. They would be refugees because you're burned in a cage if you're a Christian.
Yeah.
And I would agree in taking those people in. But isn't it a little bit odd that less than, some people have the number is under 0.5% of the refugees who were taken in were Christians?
I did not know that.
Mainly, war-aged Muslim males were taken in.
Interesting. I don't think that would be that shouldn't be who we're aiming to, like, save if they're...
Well, they'd be the refugees, is my point.
Yeah. I
Not
see.
someone in a Honduran caravan. So how do we disagree on execution? How would you agree that we need to enforce our current immigration laws? You agree that we need a strong border?
I think that
How
our
do we differ in
immigration
execution?
system is very, very weak in that it's not staffed enough. There's not enough money going to immigration to take, because it's backed up like years and years, and it's very difficult to immigrate here legally. So if you are in a bind, say your uncle is about to get murdered by the Mexican drug cartels, you're desperate and you look at this situation that you don't have the ability to come here on your own, or at least they have the thought process that they can't because it's so difficult and there's no like fast way to do it. I think we definitely need to navigate, instead of putting so much funding into a wall, like I can understand a fence, that's fine. Like the $20 billion wall is where it's pushing it.
Why? I don't understand the difference between a fence and a wall. The problem
One's
is
cheaper.
One is racist and one is, well, okay, it's still a drop in the bucket, and a fence
Yeah.
is not that much cheaper, by the way.
How much is the difference, do you know?
Well, the most generous estimates have a wall at about $20 billion, and really right now what they're talking about is $5 billion being allotted, which Democrats have already agreed to 1 point something billion.
Yeah, yeah.
Forgive my rounding
Yeah, of
errors
course,
here.
I understand.
And of course they supported building some kind of a barrier across the 800 miles
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
take work for a very long time. So why not just build the most effective barrier possible? But if we just said, okay, like Donald Trump, a barrier can be partially fenced, partially walled, depending on the topography. You okay with that?
I think so. I just think that
good.
the I think the emphasis shouldn't be on the wall. I think it should be maybe, I can understand like peace of mind. I totally get that. There's a fence between me and the bad guys. That's fine. But I think we should, instead of putting all of the money, the 20 billion or the 5 billion or the 1.6 whatever
Well, it's
billion.
not all the money. It's very, very little. Our annual budget is $4 trillion.
Yeah, it's huge.
So
But-
$5 billion is.
But I think by doing that, we're neglecting the fact that we do have a broken system for immigration
Yeah.
that we do need to support.
But the plan is actually to start enforcing those laws that haven't been enforced.
Okay.
That's a big part of the comprehensive plan that Donald Trump is putting forward. In fact, enforcing laws that were put on the books from Barack Obama. So it seems to me like you would support a wall, a barrier, a fence, if it's, let's say, a hybrid wall, fence, whatever works. If we also crack down on those who
Yes.
overstay visas, if we deported
But I
people who are
think-
here illegally.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, good.
Okay, so we're on the same page on that aspect. But I think that the conversation isn't about immigration anymore. It's about, or not the immigration system. It's about keep the bad guys out. They're gonna come get us and they're gonna steal our women and rape everyone. And
Well, that's a part of the immigration problem, is
Yeah.
keeping people out.
but
That's the biggest issue, of course. That's the only way
I
you
don't
stop
know.
it.
Is that the biggest issue or is that the most scary issue? Because I think the most depending on how much fear you can bring into the people depends on how much they'll care about this aspect.
This is kind of what I've talked about before, a reverse nirvana fallacy, where you say, well, something needs to be done. We need some kind of a barrier. We need to enforce the laws that we have. We need to deport people who are here illegally. But because it's created some sort of ethnocentrism among some people, I really haven't seen it. I've never met a Republican who says the wall needs to keep brown people out. I've seen people who just say we need to stop the problem of illegal immigration, especially because it's costing $100+ billion to the taxpayer. Where do we disagree? It seems like as far as solutions, you would do all of those things. You just maybe don't like the messaging which the media has kind of put out there.
Definitely the fear mongering is a problem for me among the media, and then I think what's going on with the government right now with the government shutdown is extremely childish. I think compromise is what this country was founded on, and we definitely need to make a compromise to this.
Yeah. Who would you hold responsible for not making a compromise right now?
I think they're both equally responsible, honestly.
That's fair. That's fair.
Like, I don't agree with Donald Trump for saying, yeah, that's fine, and then totally turning around like 3 days later and being like, we're shutting the government down, this is over. But also I see the Democrats aren't entirely in the right.
They're against something that they supported when it was Barack Obama. They were for a wall and comprehensive immigration reform until it was Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And now he's even made some compromises, right? He said, okay, we'll extend DACA 3 years right now while we solve this problem so that we can get the government rolling again.
Yeah, I think that the just stubborn headbutting in the government right now is absolutely ridiculous.
But if he's made some compromises and they said no compromise at all.
They are also in the wrong. Yes.
Yeah, I would say, I think maybe we disagree, but I would argue they're more responsible after these concessions have been made.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
So I guess my issue is, it doesn't seem like we disagree on policy at all.
No, we disagree on what needs to be done.
Okay, so what do you think needs to be done? Forgive me, I'm
Yeah, you're fine. Sorry, let me just check real quick.
That's
I
okay.
passed it one. So,
right.
Just final thoughts if you don't mind.
No problem.
I think we should, instead of putting all this money into the wall, I think we should put it into our immigration system to try and better the method by which people get here legally, because right now the system is very clunky, very long, it's strenuous, there's not staffed enough, not enough money going in. I think we need to take care of getting people here legally, and then the illegal stuff, stop making it such a fear-mongering event of
I think that's emotion. We're talking about we do need to stop illegal immigration, right?
Yes, but I think the fear-mongering needs to go away. I think we need to talk about facts. I like your numbers. I think it's very important to have numbers.
Here's a number that you might consider fear-mongering. Illegal immigrants commit crime disproportionately.
Okay.
So it's completely accurate to say that it's a much tougher pill to swallow, too, by the way, if someone rapes or kills, and they have no business being in this country in the first place.
Yeah.
If that were your sister or your mother or, I don't know, your brother by a cartel being shut up, you'd probably feel like, man, that guy had no business being here in the first place, and we haven't done anything. Sure, we should fix the broken system right now as far as work visas are being overstayed. People will always break the law.
Yeah.
But you're saying we shouldn't be spending all this money. It's a drop in the bucket. We are talking about a very small amount of money to stop the people coming here illegally.
I would be totally fine
so that
if we
then at that point we can fix the current system and see who's on the books.
Okay.
One can't happen without the other.
I think I would be more okay with the wall if we took the money from, say, something that's like defense. We have a ton of money going into defense. If we were to take money, put in more money allotted to immigration, then I think I would be more okay with the wall and more spending money on a wall and less of a fence.
Okay.
But
what about taking it from the
welfare
welfare programs that we have?
I don't agree with that. I think welfare is important.
You think it's more important than national defense?
As someone who benefits from it, yes. But I am a biased opinion.
That is a biased opinion.
Extremely
Do you
so.
think that welfare is a legitimate role of government compared to national defense?
I can see why other people don't think it is, but I personally think it is. I think it's very important for a government to take care of its citizens.
Constitutionally,
It's probably
can you make
not.
an argument that national defense
No, I think
is less
that's a
important
moral
than welfare?
thing.
Okay, so it's a
That's
moral
my
thing.
moral thing.
Well, we also understand that adds to the great problem that we have with illegal immigration, right?
Yeah.
The reason I say that is, okay,
They're
if
benefiting from the welfare.
They're benefiting from the welfare state in a way that hurts American taxpayers. Both
know.
American taxpayers who are using welfare and not using welfare, by the way.
Exactly.
And I think that's a big difference a lot of people don't touch on when we talk about being a nation of immigrants, which I appreciate you didn't bring up, by the way, because a lot of people say we're a nation of immigrants. I think we both delineate, we both are willing to
We've come a long
acknowledge legal
time.
immigration and illegal immigration.
Yeah.
They were migrating
No
here
more
legally when there was
Avery
no
Island.
welfare state.
Yeah.
But right now you have people who can enter here completely illegally and they're enticed to do so because of a welfare state.
Okay.
So I think
Yeah.
if you're going to take money from anything, not take it from a completely legitimate role of government, which is national defense. You could argue that a border is actually a significant part of national defense, as it were.
I think that would be a good
Take it
argument
from the
for it.
welfare state that is enticing them, that is attracting them to begin with, and put that into the wall.
But you're also hurting that legal Americans that have been here and benefit from it and need it just to get by, stuff like that.
Well, they're being hurt more by people coming here illegally,
That's true.
being a
But if
burden
we
on the
were to take it
taxpayers.
from the defense, then like you said, it is a national defense thing. So instead of putting it directly into the army, take it and put it in immigration and border security.
Okay. So you're fiscal conservative.
No.
Well, then, what does it matter if we're talking about $5 billion for a wall? You're saying, well, we have to. It sounds to me like you just want to take money from national defense.
No. But I think.
Then who cares if we spend $5 billion on a wall? If you're not a fiscal conservative, we spend. That's a drop in the bucket compared to the welfare program.
Okay, then maybe I am a fiscal conservative.
Okay, fiscal conservative who's pro-welfare.
Yes.
Okay, so some of those things are a little tough to juxtapose.
Yeah.
I think we found some common ground here.
I think we did. This has been a great discussion.
You came in. You seemed like you were a little bit hot-headed, like you thought this was going to be a little more hostile. Okay. All right. Did you just say no balls?
We have a gender censor here. So
I was going to say, you just got misgendered. Yeah, that's right off the bat. That's pretty. By the way, no offense if you don't actually have balls. Do you disagree? I'm going to change my mind.
See, I don't really disagree with the fact that we need to enforce our laws.
Okay.
Of course, we do need to enforce our laws. But my problem with the wall is just, isn't there a simpler solution to this broader problem? Someone told me before that the reason why it's being built. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
The reason why it's being built.
I keep bringing it in because you're pulling away. I'm not going to hit you with it. So.
Okay. Somebody told me that the reason why is to stop illegal immigration. But the fact is that most illegal immigration is from expired visas.
Yeah.
So wouldn't it just be a simpler way to just keep tabs on people who have visas from overseas and just keep a look at them instead of creating a $5 billion wall that's going to require maintenance?
Yeah.
And that's my...
Well, I appreciate where you're coming from with that. This is where we kind of run into a common issue with often on college campuses. So how confident are you that the majority of illegal immigrants are just overstayed visas?
I'm going to say at least a good 80%.
80% confident or 80% of them on?
80% of them.
80% of them? Yeah.
I'm very confident.
It's 42.
42.
It's 42%, which means less than half.
Okay.
Which means the majority of the illegal immigrants are crossing through the border unfettered. But how about this? What about doing both?
Okay, I'd be down for both, but my problem with the wall is it's too expensive. Wouldn't it just be easier to create more checkpoints, something like that?
So how would you create checkpoints?
I mean, it would still have to be an infrastructure project, but I'm saying
on the border, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just saying we don't need an entire concrete wall to do that. With a concrete wall, you don't have nothing's gonna stop somebody from chiseling away at the wall. But someone sitting at a desk, watching the border, they're probably gonna be able to see.
Yeah. Well, that's all a part of the immigration plan that President Trump is proposing, and it's certainly something I think we find common ground there, that we both think we need more than just a wall, or just a fence, whatever we want to call it. We're not necessarily talking about a concrete wall along the whole border. I agree with you. I would actually disagree with one point. You said it'd be about $5 billion. The most liberal estimates on the wall, it would cost about $20 billion plus. $20 billion plus. So I'm giving you more there, right? That sounds expensive. And I would say that, obviously I'm a fiscal conservative. I don't want to waste taxpayer dollars. I assume that you're probably lining up on the same side of the coin there. But how much do you think illegal immigrants cost the American taxpayers every year?
You're gonna have to be more concise on that. Just saying how much do illegal immigrants cost, that's encompassing a lot of things. You're gonna have to say
using social services, abusing the healthcare system, public education, using services that they're not necessarily paying for because they don't pay taxes. How much do you think they burden the American you and me, the American taxpayer each year?
I don't think I'd be able to give a informed decision on that.
And that's not a trick question. The whole purpose of this, I hope you feel it's been respectful, is not to do gotcha, but I think a lot of people aren't really informed on this issue. Illegal immigrants cost, on average, the American taxpayer $116 billion a year. So even if you were to take the most liberal estimates, you said 5, I said, well, let's even go with $20 billion to build a wall. If you look at the investment reward ratio there, $116 billion to the taxpayer each year, $20 billion is kind of a drop in the bucket.
But as you said, 42% are on expired visas, right?
42% are on expired visas. So yeah, we're getting close to 60% are coming through. The wall would help with that. And then, of course, cracking down on visas that have been overstayed. And Donald Trump has talked about that and definitely wants to heighten security and enforce the laws that we have in the book. So a lot of laws that we have haven't really been enforced as it relates to visas. So why don't we do both?
Both a wall?
Both a wall.
Are we still talking a physical wall?
Yeah.
I gotta say, I think that there are better. I still think that there are better options, like the checkpoint issue. I still think that checkpoints would be.
We're proposing both.
Both.
Yeah, there will be both. It's not going to be a completely unprotected wall. Right now, you have hundreds of miles of completely unprotected border between the United States and Mexico, and so what we're talking about is putting up a wall, a fence, a barrier, as well as having security, as well as also enhancing cybersecurity, cracking down on visas. It's not just about a wall. You know, I'm sure someone in college, you know, it's not as simplistic as that. So if we do all of that, we have a wall, and we have those checkpoints, we have people there monitoring the wall, and we know that it would cost $20 billion, let's say, and save the American taxpayers $116 billion going forward once we solve the problem. Would you be okay with doing all of the above?
Wall plus checkpoints?
Wall plus checkpoints and dealing with the visa issue, yeah.
Well, I still do think that one of the problems with the wall is that a lot of the area onto the border, isn't that all private property? Wouldn't that all have to be taken from Americans?
You're talking about eminent domain?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, here's what we are talking about, and I understand your concern there. We are talking about an issue of national security, right? And putting putting a wall up around our national border is either important or it's not. I mean, I think we both agreed here that we need to do something about illegal immigration.
Yeah.
Sounds to me like you're not for open borders.
I'm not.
Okay, good. So we find common ground there. Sounds to me like we both agree the overstaying visas are a problem. So it sounds to me like we also both agree we need to stop the influx of illegal immigrants right now.
Yeah.
So if you say, well, wouldn't a wall be on private property? Well, wouldn't we need checkpoints? Let me ask you this. This is kind of where I think we find ourselves at a crossroads. It's a bit of a reverse nirvana fallacy, where it's, well, it wouldn't really work entirely. So let me ask you this. What do you think we should do if not a wall with heightened border security? How do we solve the problem?
Okay, this is kind of a joke, but a friend once told me, if we had one person making $15 an hour, just like on a really high chair, just watching everybody for every 10 miles, you could pay that $5 billion proposed. That could run that program for 54 years. Now, that's my entire point. Why don't we just have checkpoints? Why don't we use drones? Why don't we use some other form of security?
Well, why do you preface your presupposition there, your kind of argument with, this is kind of a joke? Is it a joke? Because then it sounds like you were saying that's something we should do.
Well, I'm saying that the really high chair thing is a joke. You know, it'd be kind of impractical to have just some dude on like a 100-foot chair. I think that's kind of like a gross misunderstanding.
Okay.
But I think if we had some form of monitoring of the border, no, I'm not talking about a wall, but you know, with today's technology, you can have drones, you can have surveillance, you can have.
Sure.
Oh, it's really raining hard.
I know. I appreciate you guys sticking it out. I know it's raining.
Yeah.
Sorry we didn't bring umbrellas for all.
You can have these sorts of. There are ways to do the wall. There are ways to monitor the border. There are ways to.
Okay, so let's go with kind of your I guess solution there. Let's ignore the high chair, but you said having even just someone being paid $15 an hour at the border.
Yeah.
Right, monitoring it. Okay. Are you privy to what goes on with the Mexican drug cartels? Pretty brutal people, right?
I'm aware.
And criminals who cross over the border illegally.
Yeah.
Not the friendliest bunch. First off, where are you going to find someone to stop those people for $15 an hour?
Okay.
And how do you equip them to stop those people?
Well, I'm a believer in the legal system. I just think that just having somebody monitoring them, having the evidence.
As they walk in?
Yeah.
So you would rather just have someone at $15 an hour watch them walk in illegally and then deal with that problem afterward?
We'll deal with that problem quickly. Let the local police departments deal with it.
Okay, so now we're burdening the cost to local police departments.
Yes.
Okay. As opposed to a federal issue, now we're going to local police departments, but we run into the issue like we see now of sanctuary cities. Where you have cities, you know, in the United States, I'm sure you're familiar with them, you can't deport not only illegal immigrants, but illegal immigrants who have committed subsequent crimes beyond coming to the country illegally. Why should we let these people in? Why don't we stop them before they come in? You do realize, again, that's going to add to the tax burden like we're talking about. It doesn't seem very realistic.
Well, as I said before, We're just gathering evidence. That's all I'm saying. Gather evidence. I'm not saying that. I did say originally that the police department should detain these people, but I'm not saying that the local city should perhaps charge them. Maybe we should get the federal government to charge them.
After they've come into the country illegally.
Yes.
That's a much lengthier and costlier process than stopping them from coming in here. Not to mention the fact that they don't have the right to be here in the first place.
What's the estimate for the current amount of illegal immigrants in the U.S.?
It's really hard to measure because, again, they're off the books. They're not here legally.
Do you have an estimate?
It's in the millions. Yeah, it's well into the millions, yeah. You can find some sites that say it's only 5 million. You can find some sites that say it's up to 20 million. So it's hard to measure.
How much does it cost for a federal court to have a federal court look at the issue?
Well, it depends. You're talking about where it goes up to a Supreme Court, something like the Ninth Circuit Court, the final Supreme Court. It's actually more expensive, for example, to put someone to death today than it is just to take care of them for the rest of their lives in prison. But I think we're getting so far off the beaten path here. That's not our job. And we shouldn't set up a system that allows for people to commit a crime and then retroactively administer justice. And here's something else I think that you're not thinking of here. The issue that we talk about, like DACA, anchor babies, dreamers. The issue there is the parents have committed a crime. They brought their children here illegally, or they came here illegally and got pregnant, or they were pregnant when they migrated here illegally. And after that, because they've committed a crime, if we have to deport them as criminals, they are separated from their children. They committed the crime, right? These incidents wouldn't occur if we secured the border in the first place. So you're actually talking about adding to these incidents. I don't think that's very compassionate because you'd be separating families at that point. You'd be putting them in different prisons. It seems to me that we both agree there needs to be some kind of an immigration plan, which I appreciate. A lot of people, I'm sure, will sit down and talk about open borders and how a wall is mean or racist, and you didn't do that. I actually think that simply having a barrier, cracking down on visas, making sure that we know who is in this country, and of course deporting people who are here illegally, who are committing crimes at the very least, is a more feasible program. And I hope that maybe we found some common ground there, and maybe we agree on some of that.
Perhaps.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it.
You too.
Go make fun of your ballless friend. Really quickly, if you enjoy these authentic, unedited types of conversations, do think of supporting the program at louderwithcreditor.com/mugclub. You get access to The Daily Show, as well as a catalog of other shows, along with this hand-etched, girthy mug. And, of course, you support the program, as it's the only way to make it sustainable, because tech overlords don't like us. Here we go. You're more than welcome to change my mind.
It's not necessarily that I disagree, I guess, with the concept of border security. I just think the wall is a wasteful symbol. And that our taxes pay for. So I would believe in using 21st century technology to enforce a border, like what Republican Will Hurd suggested, using drones, using some of the seismic technology that Israel has to detect tunnels, which would prevent a lot of the, I guess, more dangerous criminals that are trying to cross the border, drugs, guns, human smuggling. And I believe that'd be more of a, I guess, permanent solution rather than a temporary one that'd be symbolic. And I agree. I'm glad that you agree with more of a comprehensive reform of immigration rather than just a border, because we do have a lot of visa overstay, people coming through the waters of the Gulf of Mexico to the southern states down there in Florida. So I don't necessarily disagree with you. I just think it's a very temporary. It's a very temporary American type of solution where we don't go for the long term immediately. We're always going for the temporary solution.
You think America doesn't go for the long term solution?
Not with all our decisions. No.
Not with all our decisions, but I'd say, the country that went from being oppressed one century, going to a new land only to become the world's greatest superpower and only superpower the next, that's kind of long ball.
It is pretty long ball, but it wasn't.
I come from Canada. We just kissed the ring of the royalty. So
true.
Yeah.
Part of the Commonwealth.
Yes. We have her on our coins. It's very silly. But I do appreciate that we both find common ground here. You do agree that we need comprehensive immigration reform. I hate to say reform because the truth is we haven't enforced a lot of the laws that are already on our books. As you mentioned with the visa overstays, especially under Barack Obama. These were grossly violated. And I think that needs to be solved as well. I did ask your colleague here, it was Mr. Barba?
Yes.
And he was surprised. Are you aware of kind of how many illegal immigrants are actually just here on overstaying their visas versus crossing the border illegally?
No, sir, I don't.
Would you do you have a general guess? A lot of people think it's most are visa overstays.
I mean, it's hard to exactly tell because I'm not sure even the government themselves actually know the number. I bet it'd be better for the state governments to have more data on that rather than the federal. So it's kind of hard to tell which.
It's a good point. With illegal immigration, it's hard to get accurate statistics. Visa overstays a little bit less so because you can see people who've applied for visas and people who haven't left or haven't necessarily been deported properly. It's around 40%. So you still have the majority of illegal immigration is occurring at the southern border. And the vast majority of illegal immigrants are coming from places like Mexico, Honduras, El Salvador. Of course, we just saw Mexico recently got really upset, saying, "Get these Hondurans out of here." Let me ask you this: why not do all of the above?
Again, because I believe it's a temporary solution. Like first, we need to go.
Well, right now there's no solution, though, right?
Right. Yeah. There's
nothing right now.
We don't know where we're shut down.
Right.
We need like a permanent solution. So we build a wall, right? We build a wall. We have immigration reform. We build walls all around, even our porous Canadian border where you're from. You can just cross. The pictures
It's
are crazy.
actually more well guarded than the southern border. A lot of people don't realize that's because the Canadian police also do their job. But yeah,
true. But I think we have to get to the root of why are they coming here. We can build let's say the first wall doesn't work. We can build one 10 times higher, right? Put guns there, but people are still going to be coming. So we need to go to the root of the problem of why they're coming. We destabilize their governments, and we don't like the government, the political lean.
Okay.
So we overthrow them, and then these people have no government, and then these criminals that use the porous border to take guns from Texas and send them south. So that's another problem. And so then these people are still going to be coming, and then they're going to destabilize Mexico, unless we're going to build more walls, a huge wall into Mexico, and then just keep going down. So we need
A
to
wall
find
into Mexico?
Yes,
No, we're only talking about here, and it seemed like you were on board with, and now it seems like you're kind of zagging as to where you started. It seemed like you said
I'm
we should
suggesting
have
if we build a
security
wall
with drones, with guards, something a little bit more modern than a wall.
Well,
and now you're saying, but the problem is, the root cause is we're destabilizing these governments. Let's assume that that's true. Okay, let's assume that that's true, that it's all America's fault, that we've destabilized these regions, and that we're the ones who screwed up Mexico. That's why they've never gotten it right. Going back to the Mayans and Aztecs, the Incas, Peruvian. So let's assume all of that's correct. It's all our fault. All right.
Well,
there still is a problem with
our
the
fault.
Okay, but I'm just saying for the sake of argument, let's assume that's the case. We still do have a problem with illegal immigration, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And we need to solve it. So how do we solve it?
We get to the root of the problem. We invest in those countries, not just in the companies that are there, the multinational corporations, giving to the governments that are corrupt or the ones that we believe are going to keep those countries stable but are actually oppressing the people to leave. If we invest in infrastructure, instead of spending billions on a wall, sending billions of dollars to the Middle East to places we'll never go and they won't come here, like unless they come through plane or through visa overstay.
Through the border?
Or through the border.
Happens a lot.
I think that's really overstated in my opinion.
In your opinion, okay.
But if we invest in those places rather than the Middle East where it's just going to get blown up, more war, more geopolitical power struggles with China and Russia, if we invest in Latin America in kind of a one belt, one road, we have a vision for our continent, we can eliminate the problem of illegal immigration.
I disagree, but a couple things. Are you saying we invest in these other countries
so they don't
while building
here.
a wall and securing our border simultaneously? Or you're saying just invest in these economies, in these countries?
I believe in securing the border. I think a wall is a waste of money. I think we can go into a more permanent solution rather than temporary.
Well, walls work. Again, Donald Trump has not proposed only the wall. That's sort of the slogan catchphrase. He's the first person to really actively push for the same kind of comprehensive immigration reform that Barack Obama promised and Nancy Pelosi agreed to.
Yeah.
I mean, she agreed to funding. She said we need to put about a 700-mile fence in the southern border. That's really what he's asking for right now. So let's say, okay, we don't do a wall, but we do what you are suggesting, drones, other methods of interception. It seems to me like, are you suggesting doing that as well as investing? Or are you saying try investing and don't build a wall, or don't build a border, as it were?
I think we need absolutely to secure a border. I haven't debated against that. I just think the wall is wasteful. A wall itself.
Okay.
I think we can employ more technology that won't require the same of investment in the long term to just maintain a wall. And I think
it's very inexpensive.
Even with walls,
it's a rounding error when you look at our budget. The $5 billion right now is a rounding error. We have a $4 trillion budget.
When you start using rounding errors, it's the same concept a lot of Democrats use to keep and Republicans to keep spending money.
But now when you look at illegal immigrants who cost the American taxpayer, $116 billion per year. So if a wall would work, and there's a lot of evidence to suggest that it would work. Israel just erected a wall. 99% of illegal immigration is stopped. I want to
you
go
still
to
have a lot of problems. I mean, you solve immigration, then you have missiles being shot across the border, and then tunnels. You created a tunnel problem in Israel, which is really bad for Israel right now.
If we have Mexicans firing rockets into our churches, I think we'll have a problem. But I don't foresee that happening anytime soon. And the second we hear a mariachi band yell out Allahu Akbar, I'll duck for cover, and maybe we'll go on that pathway. Let me ask you this: you say invest in these countries. I'm curious as to how we would do that. Do you mean invest in companies?
No,
invest
absolutely not.
Governments?
Not even governments.
Okay, so how do we invest in their infrastructure?
I think we need more of a cooperation. We've done what we did with Germany and after World War II and a lot of those countries. We forget a lot of these countries in Latin America are our allies. Regardless whether we're paying them, we prop them up, or trade agreements.
Right.
If we prop up these countries, show them mutual respect, as fellow continental Americans, I think we can solve this problem.
How would we invest in them is my point. I don't understand.
I'm not a politician, sir. I'm not.
Well, you suggested it as a solution. I'm not trying to catch you on anything.
I mean, we invest in roads, we invest in education, clean water. Mexico's having a clean water problem. If we also check some of our companies that are over there that are exploiting these people, taking their water supply, taking their clean water, destroying their natural environments where they need to farm.
So see, you just said you said earlier that you weren't doing this, but you are implicating the United States as though we are the problem there.
Not
you
necessarily.
Think
I
Mexico
wouldn't
has a problem?
say
People are leaving because we're stealing their water.
I'm not necessarily saying it's the United States as a whole is problem.
Okay.
It's certain actors.
So we invest in their roads, we invest in their infrastructure. In other words, we'd have to give that to their government.
Not necessarily. I mean, we haven't done that in the Middle East, and we didn't do that in Germany, and we didn't do it in a lot of countries that we've invested in.
Okay, so how will we do this here in Mexico?
We're allies. We can work together and do things. We've built things together.
We built things. So again, but I think something that's kind of important, you mentioned destabilizing a lot of these regions and these countries. Well, how do we do that?
I mean, there's
by investing
let's say, like, for
in
example,
infrastructure and trying to bet on a certain team. Right? That's how ISIS was created. I agree with you. I'm more of a non-interventionist. But if you invest now into Mexico, anytime you're investing with somebody.
Yes.
So it's ironic that you say we need to invest in these countries and then also talk about how the whole reason that they're destabilized is because of prior investment. And I don't think that solves the problem, and I know you said you're not a politician, of an open border right now, hundreds of miles of open border, which costs the American taxpayers hundreds of billions of dollars every year.
Well, we benefit from that, though, from cheap labor. I mean, maybe not necessarily you're benefiting or anyone in this crowd is benefiting, but we have lots of very rich people that are benefiting from extremely cheap labor who continue. The only reason they're here, too, is because there's work.
Yeah.
That's the reason they're in this country. And that's another problem we need to get to the root of. We need to maybe have a universal e-verify. Maybe we need to have all these corporations be like, you need to go through your employees, go who is working for you, and the reason
I agree on cracking down on employers who are hiring illegal immigrants.
And that's why they're here. There's lots of work. We benefit from cheap food that's underpriced because we use underpaid labor. So I think there's a lot more benefits to that cost where it comes out almost even.
Well, the analysis would show that it's not. It costs the American tax, and you might be talking about corporations. But it's kind of interesting that you bring that up. So you think it's okay if corporations are benefiting from cheap labor because the American taxpayer, the average citizen, is not. They're the ones footing the bill.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's right. I don't think.
So then I guess we would agree in securing the border by whatever means there. I think a wall is an important component to that. Cracking down on the overstaying of visas and deporting people who are here illegally. We would both agree on that?
I think on the deportation part, why would we deport people who are here working and making money? Why wouldn't we use that as a money-making opportunity?
Because they came here illegally, they broke the law.
I mean, was it their fault that they broke the law, or is it our fault not enforcing it? That's where I say...
It was their fault.
Is it their fault if we didn't enforce?
Yeah, it's their fault. Just like if you go into that library right now and steal a book and the security guard doesn't see it, it's not the security guard's fault. It's your fault.
Would it be the library's fault, though?
No.
If there's no enforcement of laws, is there necessarily a law?
Yes. There's a law, you broke it, you just didn't get caught. And then if they saw you in your physical science class and hauled you out in cuffs and said, hey, you stole a book, they'd be well within their rights to do so. Yes, I do believe that the person knowingly breaking the law is breaking the law, and that person should be deported. Especially if someone's committing subsequent crimes. And you have with sanctuary cities, we can't even deport people who've come here. When we say illegal immigrants committing crimes, it's redundant, but I'm talking about subsequent crimes in addition to migrating here illegally. We can't even deport some of those people. They're in our prisons right now.
Which I think is wrong when we can deport people that are committing crimes, that are being violent, because that is a big waste, and we should be putting criminals that should be there in those prisons rather than people that shouldn't be here, like, legally.
So you would agree with deporting criminals who are in our prisons who are here illegally?
Absolutely. I don't think we should be holding violent, undocumented immigrants in our prisons.
I completely agree with you. And by the way, I think that's an important point as we talk about the government shutdown, because a lot of blame has been placed around. When we talk about, like we said, a rounding error, we talk about $5 billion. The Democrats have agreed to 1 point something billion, and Donald Trump wants, I think, 5.1 or 5.7 billion, along with comprehensive immigration reform. He's offered to extend DACA 3 years. But
That's
you're
a
talking
temporary
about
solution. It should be permanent.
I don't believe it should be permanent.
We should have a permanent.
But again, right now he's trying to get the
sides.
government started back up. Whereas if you look at the current Democratic Party, they don't believe the policy is that you can't even deport illegal immigrants who are committing crimes here right now. And that's a very new policy, by the way. It's only happened under President Trump. When you look at how they interacted with President Obama, and even going back to Clinton, it was a very, very common solution to create a wall, and of course to deport people who are here illegally committing crimes. For some reason now there's no compromise on that. And I think maybe you and I, if we were sitting down, could have a little bit more of a productive solution to hopefully stopping the government shutdown than the current Democratic Party with Donald Trump. But I think we line up on more than we disagree.
All right, nice talking to you.
I appreciate it, Mr. Barber.
Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, tear down the wall! Tear down the wall! Tear down the wall!
Cool.
Tear down the wall!
Cool story, bro.
Okay, yeah. So I'm an anarcho-capitalist, which means that I favor the doctrine that private property is sacrosanct, the rule of contract is sacrosanct. Therefore, the United States the United States government, in that it presupposes that everybody that's in its borders, they have a right to tax, they have a right to basically do whatever the heck that institution may wants
What
to
does
do.
it have to do with?
Well, no,
are you saying that the United States doesn't exist, therefore there should be no borders?
I mean, of course. Of
Okay.
course, yeah. So,
I would disagree with that. So,
Why?
what would you see in the place of the United States? You would rather have a Native American ethno-state?
Well, no, obviously not. That's obviously not what I believe in. However,
Okay, so let me go back here. The Native.
If you want to talk about, the reparations argument is something totally different.
I'm not talking about reparations.
No, I know, but I mean, what I'm coming from is that what gives the United States government the ability to do whatever it wants to do. I mean, and
Do you-
that's
Can I ask
my
you a question?
Yeah, of course.
Do you believe that countries exist?
No, because they're not done through contracts.
Okay, so you don't believe that any countries exist?
Oh no, I don't. Of course, I mean.
Okay.
Obviously.
Thank you very much. I don't think we're gonna have a ton to agree on there. I appreciate
I mean, the fact.
If I can't talk about securing a country if you don't think countries are a thing.
no,
I just
it's not
disagree
that-
with you.
Oh, okay. Okay, Steven. Okay, Steven.
Okay, Stephen. Okay, crazy person. Let's go one more.
If you disagree, you're more than welcome to change my mind. I see you have a sign there, so I'm assuming it kind of can guess where you're coming
Well,
from.
I guess it's a conversation starter, so we can first start off with this. Is that like people, the government, the right wing sort of that supports this building of the wall, they are often trying to deport people who come in seeking refuge and seeking shelter, and put them back to the place where, first of all, I think we can hopefully agree that completely messes with a person's life. If you come in and then are pushed back out to a system that you tried to get away from, no, you don't think that's harmful
I
to them.
think no, it's not that I wouldn't say it's harmful to them, but you use the term seeking asylum or refugees.
Mm-hmm.
There's a clear definition. What constitutes a refugee?
Well, someone who is struggling due to the government in their own country, and then is coming in seeking a better experience in America because
That's not what a refugee is.
You don't think that's right? Okay, what's
That's not what the legal definition of refugee
What is the legal definition of
is. So I think it's important to note. Have you been taught this in school? What a refugee is? What is required for someone to be a refugee, and what the protocol is to deal with refugees?
Nothing that rigid, no.
Okay. Well, no, it's international law. So it is specifically somebody who is being persecuted for their religion, color, creed by the government, facing physical bodily harm, usually death, from their government. And so it is the duty of the nearest country possible to take those people in. So, for example, Christians from Syria would be refugees. If they're burned alive by ISIS in cages, those would be refugees.
Right.
People who think that America is better than their country would not be refugees.
So just because they don't qualify for this legal definition, international law definition of refugee, you don't think that they should be granted shelter or just be allowed to be here because they're seeking a better life? Is that what I'm understanding?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't think that it's a fundamental birthright to be an American citizen, unless you were born in the United States or immigrated here legally, took a naturalization oath.
Okay, and what's wrong with that? What's wrong with coming here and even if you came here legally, do you believe in the idea that people who are again seeking a better life, people who are very much struggling, perhaps dying or would die in Mexico, would come up here, and so you're saying that's like that it's not just that it's not a right, but is that what is the harm in them coming here? I've heard a lot of rhetoric about the economy, but like I guess I just don't understand the idea of, well, they are people just like any American-born citizen is, so why can't they fuel the economy? Why can't they drive jobs?
A couple of things. They are not people just like any American-born citizen in that they are not citizens of this country, just like I'm not a citizen of Mexico. In Mexico, there are certain rights that are not afforded to me as a non-Mexican citizen.
Sure.
In fact, even the right to own waterfront property is an issue. They have much more strict immigration laws in Mexico. I don't agree with that either. But as to your first question, first off, it doesn't address the fact that it's not a human right to be a citizen of any country that you want to be a citizen of. And where's the harm? Well, let me list a couple of things. Legal immigrants, people who've been waiting, trying to get into this country legally, people who played by the rules, people who've obeyed the law, they get hurt because we have an overburdened immigration system. The economy, $116 billion footed to the taxpayers each year, and a disproportionate amount of crime committed by illegal immigrants who had no business being here in the first place. Those would be three reasons.
Okay, so I'm kind of wanting to talk in particular about reasons 1 and 3. Okay. So reason 3 kind of jumped out to me. It's certainly my opinion that if they're criminals, then they should be persecuted. Put into the justice system, whatever. Like I am not saying
deported.
Sure, because they came here seeking a better life and then just ruin that by being criminals. I understand that I'm not.
Some of them aren't seeking a better life, but
I'm not supporting criminals.
Of course not.
I'm supporting people who are honestly struggling in their own country and trying to come here.
But I didn't say that you were supporting criminals. You said, what is the harm in just allowing anyone to come here legally or illegally? And I gave you 3 reasons. I didn't say they are all criminals, and I don't believe that you support criminals. Listen, I don't think you're a monster. I hope you don't think I'm a monster. But I am saying there's a disproportionate amount of crime committed by illegal immigrants. Okay? It harms legal immigrants because it overburdens our system. And, of course, it is a harm to the American taxpayer to the tune of, depending who you ask, over $100 billion a year. Those are 3 reasons. I want to stay with that. I'm not saying that you support criminals. I would not do that.
Now, another thing, you're saying it hurts legal immigrants who are trying to come here legally, which, by the way, I hope we can agree is difficult. But I don't see how undocumented immigrants who are not in the system, they're not on the books, coming in here hurts people who are legally coming here, because if they're undocumented, they're not being put into a queue. It's not like, oh, we're full now. I don't understand how
you just described exactly what it is.
There's
a limited capacity.
How are they being counted?
There's a limited capacity as to how many people we can have in a country, especially when you have people who, takes us to number 2, right, are a net burden on the American taxpayer. It costs a lot of money to have a legal immigration system, right? It costs a lot of money to be able to monitor, to be able to approve visas to get people to this country legally. And when you have $116 billion being drained from the American taxpayer, and potentially that could go to other services or other legitimate roles of government because of illegal immigration, it harms everybody.
That seems like a self-fulfilling prophecy there. You're talking about how there's a huge burden on taxpayers because of the immigration system and the visas and everything.
No, because of illegal immigrants. Only because of illegal immigrants.
Because of illegal immigrants.
Because of illegal immigrants exclusively, $116 billion a year. Yes.
And where is that figure coming from? What is are they? Where's the cost? I guess I don't understand. If somebody's coming here trying to work a job, trying to live life, where's the cost to the government from that? Welfare?
Yep. That's one of them, yeah. Welfare, not paying taxes, using the social services, the safety net, the welfare state that we have right now without paying into it, and of course things like using emergency rooms when they can't bill you because you don't have a social security number. So it's $116 billion. Let's assume I'm off by $20 billion. But you asked for 3 reasons. Are those 3 reasons reason enough to say, okay, maybe we have a problem with illegal immigration?
Well, not in my opinion.
Okay, all right.
Of course. I mean, in your opinion, sure. But
let me ask you this. Do you believe that the United States needs to have a border?
we're talking about like a wall or a fence or a gate or something, right? I mean, we're not talking about a literal
The ability
country border.
to prevent people from coming in unless we invite them in.
I do not think that there should be a border in that sense.
You don't?
I do not.
Okay, so you don't believe in countries?
Like I said, I believe in the line. If you were to draw a line between America and Mexico, that's fine. That's on a map. But I'm saying if there's nothing but just a field of grass there, I think that's fine.
So someone should just, because it's unprotected and there's no wall, someone should just be able to walk across it.
But what's the idea of protecting a plot of land that is, I mean, okay, like...
Every country since the beginning of time has had borders and has had a monitoring system to make sure that people who are in the confines of their country are there legally.
Are you sure? I'm fairly sure there are some ones in Europe that have very open borders.
Well, we're talking about the European Union. Native Americans didn't really believe in the concept of personal property, but the United States isn't one of those nations. We are a nation with a system of laws. We do have a system for legal immigration, and you are to abide by that current system. So let me ask you this. You're against the wall. I see you have a sign here that says
yes,
no human is illegal.
Yes.
So I don't really know that we're going to find a whole lot of common ground because I do believe in borders. And I do believe that people should come here legally. You don't. No human is illegal. Explain to me your point of view. What would you do?
Well, I guess it's like more like a moral thing. I mean, like, because it you know, again, if you are struggling, you know, you're essentially being, I don't know how to say it, but like in government in Mexico, you know, the government makes things difficult for these people who want to immigrate, and so it's like you're in. It's kind of like you're in between a rock and a hard place, right? Because you're trying to enter and have a better life, but you come from a place of difficulty, and then you know you come to a place where people are having a good time, or at least you know relatively, and
an inferior country to a superior country.
I don't know if I go that far, but
that's what you're describing.
An inferior government to a superior government. Well, I'll say that. But basically coming into the country seeking what, you know, by the way, we advertise as the American dream.
So you would say superior government, the American government to the Mexican government. What makes it superior?
Superior economy. How about that? Is economy better?
What makes it superior?
Because I'm trying to avoid this racist rhetoric that people have when they talk about like superior countries and everything. Like that's kind of
you just described people wanting to leave a country that is clearly inferior in search of a better. If someone is leaving one country in search of a better life and they say I'm going to America, how would you define that country if not superior?
A place of perhaps greater opportunity.
But to say superior, you believe is racist
because superior
rhetoric?
is an all-encompassing term, you see.
Yes,
like, you know,
it's a superior country. But you said superior government. Okay, what makes it a superior government? I'm just using your words here.
I think I'm going to go back on government because I don't think I'm informed enough about the Mexican and American government to make that comparison. Okay. But economy
a superior economy.
A superior economy.
Well, why is the American economy superior?
Okay, well, just a good example would be GDP.
Okay.
GDP per capita, you know, median income. I mean, like, I guess I don't really know, like, why this is even a question.
Well, because you're saying that people have a fundamental right to come here. You're wanting to avoid using the word superior, but you're saying because people seem to have a better time, there seems to be there's a reason that they're coming here. I need you.
The American dream.
Okay, the American dream.
That's what we market it as. That's like
right.
That's like part of the pride of our nation.
So superior economy, the American dream.
Yes.
Okay, that's not. I just want to make sure that's not considered racist rhetoric.
That is not considered racist.
Why do you think the American economy is so superior to, say, Mexico's?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's a very multifaceted question. I assure you.
Well,
I mean, like
pretty simple.
Okay,
compared to Mexico, are we a free enterprise economy?
I would think so.
Good. Okay, so there's one. Compared to Mexico, are we a nation with an enshrined constitution and fundamental inalienable rights?
Yes.
Okay. So these same laws in place that make, by your own words, a better economy, you said government backed off, a better economy, a place that's more desirable, are also the same laws that say people have to come here legally. You can't have one without the other. And what you are suggesting is to allow people who are leaving an inferior economy, I would also argue, government, country, culture in general, Mexico, that's why they're leaving. Your suggestion is to allow people to come here off of the books and take advantage of a current welfare state that we have while not necessarily contributing. But without saying that the United States is superior. It's so desirable, by your own words, people would risk death to come over here, but it would be racist to say it's superior.
Right, because you're talking about superior country, you're talking about...
I just want to make sure you understand the confliction there.
I'm sorry, would you say that America is a superior country to Mexico?
Yes.
All right. Well, that's your words. That's your opinion.
I also think that human beings can be illegal.
Also,
that they can be in a country illegally.
There's something you said as you were talking. I kind of want to go back on for a minute. You said that it's the same laws that make it difficult for them to come in or difficult for them to stay here without going through the rigid legal process.
What I'm saying is the same thing that makes America a more desirable place, the United States of America a more desirable place, is the same reason they need to enter this country legally, because we have a rule of law that needs to be enforced.
It's from the same paper. I mean, it's from the same Constitution, but there's no evidence, or at least I would think that there's evidence that particular part of the Constitution. I think it's the same paper, not the same sentence, not the same paragraph that makes the economy so great, that makes our nation great.
Why do you believe our nation is great?
I mean, I don't know. That's not really a topic of discussion here.
Well, it is.
We're talking about a wall.
People want to come here.
Well,
right?
yeah,
It's a national security issue because because more people want to come to the United States than anywhere else in the world.
Well,
why do you think the United States is so great?
Then I guess I'll go back to what I said. The economy. The economy is great.
The economy is great.
The economy is doing okay.
And why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, again, that's a very multifaceted question. Like,
the economy's fine in Canada.
Sure. So then Canada doesn't border Mexico. So people who come from Mexico, I'm sure they would just as.
But do you think it's just the economy?
If they could teleport to Canada, what do you mean? Do you think it's just the economy? I don't know what you're going for here.
My point is, you've talked about the great lengths that people will go to get to this country, and I agree with you. But you said you don't want to use the superior rhetoric because for some reason that's racially charged. And by the way, that'll help.
Well, I mean, okay.
We're doing a lot of ring around the rosy here, and I like to laser in on a point where you're saying superior in every way, but you don't want to use the word superior. How is it racially charged to say that America?
Because there are aspects of America that are superior to aspects of other countries, but to say a country is superior is evoking rhetoric such as Germany, World War II, right? Talking about how is it not?
Because they were saying a race is superior. We are saying a country is superior.
It was
a set of ideals, a set of laws is superior. By the way, a lot of different races here in the United States, they would all be included in the superior. I don't think it's an apt comparison. Why is it racially charged rhetoric to say that America is a superior country?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure it particularly matters that there are so many different races here when you have America still being predominantly white. So I mean, it's still a predominantly white nation, and I mean. To
certainly much more diverse than most other countries.
Fair.
Yeah.
And I am all for diversity. I'm wearing a shirt that says diversity.
Okay.
I'm all about diversity in countries, and I think that's a good thing. But we are still predominantly white, and we still have disproportionate white representation in government, and et cetera, et cetera.
Is that why you want more illegal immigration? Because you'd like to see us less white?
No, because I was coming back to the point that I was originally making is they're struggling, they're trying to escape that and come here and live the American dream that we market, and then they're just told you need to get the heck back to Mexico. I mean, what is that life? What is that existence?
Mexico?
No, what is the life of a person who is again perhaps on the verge of death, but we could just say verge of extreme poverty for reasonable. Yeah, it is terrible.
Doesn't mean that we don't need to have laws. Do you think that a wall or a border, it sounds like you said that saying America's a superior country is racially charged.
It is.
Do you think that is that why you're against this idea of a wall and a border? Do you believe that that's a racially charged issue? I've heard a lot of people.
No, it's more out of sympathy for the people who are trying to come here. I think that they are so often vilified and demonized that people don't they don't have that compassion.
So let's talk about only what you and I are talking about here. Okay. I haven't vilified or demonized anyone. I have compassion for these people.
Well, you're saying put them back in Mexico, which is a tortured existence.
That's not vilifying or demonizing them. I can be compassionate and say we still are a country with laws that you have to follow. So do you consider that vilifying or demonizing?
And leave them to struggle when we have the resources to support them.
We don't. Let me ask you this. What building is that over there?
That is a library.
Okay, that's a library.
Yes.
Do you know what their hours are actually?
They're 24 hours actually.
Really, they are 24 hours.
But I think past 11 you have to have a student card to get in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have to prove that you're a student.
Yes.
What happens if you're not a student? You don't have a card after 11.
And then you don't enter. I'm not sure what your point is here precisely, but
is that racially charged?
That is not
racially
discriminatory. This is such a straw man. Hold on.
No, it's not.
This is a library versus a country.
Why do they have the? Yes. No, it's very comparable. Why does a library have the right to tell people?
Scale matters, sir.
Yeah. Scale does matter. So this is a university, right, where they can say, you have to be a student to use these services to be here after these hours. Yeah. You don't think that's appropriate for a country to do?
Well, no, because first of all, people chose to come here. That there's a big element of choice. People don't choose to be born into Mexico or born into America. I mean, it's kind of interesting, like how people think that they fundamentally deserve these things, but that's a tangent. So, but it's basically like people pay tuition to come here, and therefore they sort of have that. And again, they choose to come here, and so that's the difference.
Kind of like paying taxes.
Right, but you are not. But still, nobody chooses to be born in Mexico or live their lives. Living a life is different than having a college experience.
Sure, it's different than a college experience. I'm simply using the idea of a barrier there to paint a picture. Again, unless you're contributing here in school, and that's what I'm talking about, contributing tax-paying American citizens. By the way, legal immigrants I'm including here. We asked again, we're going back to 3 answers. What harm does it cause? That's the harm it causes to legal immigrants. Just like if someone came here and rented out all the books and they weren't a student, I don't see what's wrong with having a key card to prove that you are a contributing member of this country. But I also don't think there's anything wrong with saying that the United States is superior to Mexico. So I don't really know that. I think there's cognitive dissonance there if you're saying, I can't say that we're superior to Mexico, but no human is illegal because so many people are willing to die to come over here. I think we need to be honest about where we're lining up. The United States is a better country. That's why people want to come here. I'm compassionate because I'm honest about that, but you still need to sign the guest book on the way in. And if we don't agree that there need to be borders, I don't think we're going to find much common ground.
I like how you phrase it as just sign the guest book on the way in. Like, it's that simple, right? Like, you can just
go through the process of becoming a citizen legally.
Which is, again, difficult and could still...
It is. I think it's worth it.
Do you agree with perhaps easing up on that a little bit, making it easier for people to come in legally? Okay.
I don't.
And then another point, I know this is kind of jumping a little bit, but...
Well, we do have to get going here. Our permits run out, but go ahead.
All right. Illegal immigrants, you're saying they don't contribute anything? Is that what you're saying? That they just come here and all they do is just they collect money from welfare?
I'm not saying all illegal immigrants, but illegal immigrants as a whole are a net burden on the American taxpayer, absolutely.
And do you think that there's something maybe we could do to help change that instead of instead of deporting them or securing the border?
No, I think that's the solution.
You think that's the solution?
I think we try that first and then see what else we got. Yeah.
And
plug the hole, just like if you had a sinking ship. Plug the hole, plug the gaps in the fence.
Unfortunately,
make sure that we have border security, and I think deport people who are here illegally. Yeah, that's what I believe.
Unfortunately, I think we're not going to find common ground because I'm coming from a place of compassion, and I'm talking about sort of coming from. And again, I was going to come back to saying like, if we have compassion for these people,
I do have compassion for these people.
But do you?
Yeah.
Do you really?
I don't think that being compassionate means giving somebody everything they want. And I have a lot of compassion for legal immigrants to this country. I even had someone who worked for me who was a legal immigrant whose visa ran out and he had to leave. And I have compassion because that guy was a hard worker. We've had several people who actually work for my company who have immigrated. We've had people from Germany, we've had people from Canada, we have someone from Colombia right now, and I have compassion for them. So I think for you to assume that you have the moral high ground on compassion just because you don't really have a fundamental worldview yet as to how to solve the problem, first of all, I think you're not affording me the same luxury I afforded you in that I assume you want to solve the problem and you care about people, you're just wrong in your solution. To say that you're coming from a place of compassion, assuming that I'm not, I don't think that's the best way to have a conversation, but I understand why you would think that.
And that is what I think, and
that's okay.
I still appreciate that I was able to meet you. And
thank you very much, sir. Yes. I appreciate it. All right, you have a good one.
Well, there you have it. Some surprising common ground found. Some yelling, that countries aren't a thing, but it was mostly productive. We hope you enjoyed this installment. Please support it loudwithcredit.com/mugclub, and we will see you next time. Well, I won't see you, but you'll watch me here.